What is up, my friends? Welcome to another special report. In this video, I'm going to pose the question, should we still trust Warren Buffett? Now, I know a video like this is not going to get a lot of love, but please, love it or hate it, bear with me till the end, listen to everything that I'm going to go through, and then make up your own mind. Now, unfortunately, I too am a Warren Buffett fanboy, so it sucks to make a video like this, but we do have to start questioning when we see sizable mistakes happening over and over and over again. And I would say that really things started to open up and during the bank bailout in 2007 to 2009. Then we have the mishap in Apple with Apple in 2011. From there, we have the Wells Fargo, and there's probably been others that I've missed, but I hope that in this video I lay out enough of the breadcrumbs here for you to see the consistent theme. Like I said, I'm a big Warren Buffett fan, so I've read The Intelligent Investor, that it was the book he swears by. I've read many books about his life, about his trading strategy. It's some of the first stuff that I read when I got into investing, and I like the books. I like a lot of his philosophy. I like a lot of what he has to say. And the thing that I think about false idols is false idols are extremely dangerous because you start to get into this delusional state of, if they're right about this, they're right about all things. Or because I say I rally behind him and I get behind him over here in this area, I have to get behind him in everything. Otherwise, I might look or feel like an idiot because he might be really dumb over here in this thing. We see this with basketball players being really bad with their money, basketball players being really bad with their relationships, but they're really great at basketball. So it's okay to just like somebody for the things that they're great at. And even within the things that they're great at, they might not be great at all those things, but they're great at enough of them that you like those character traits and you apply that to your life. I think that's really the most important thing to take away. There's a lot of things I like about Warren Buffett's investing strategy. There's a lot of things I don't like about Warren Buffett, the individual. I think his diet is horrible. I think some of the things that he says is just obnoxious, and all that is okay. I take what I like from his investing strategy and I try to apply that to my life. That's all we need to do at the end of the day, because we're all looking to, make our own way and make our money, right? So now let's drop these breadcrumbs and dive into it. This was triggered by a post that is not new. It's about a week old now, and Warren Buffett was recently on CNBC, and he came back and made some really strong, much stronger comments that many people felt were below the belt on Bitcoin specifically. So Warren Buffett says Bitcoin is delusional and attracts charlatans. That was the exact comment. It led me to think, well, wait a second, is he clean? And why is he saying charlatans? And he said it was rat poison before, and we're going to look at all of his quotes, but why is he saying these specific things? What is this, like guilt? Is this like a projection? Is he mad that he's missing out? Is this like propaganda that it's in his best interest to talk badly about crypto? What is this, right? I think, and my assumption anyways, is that it's probably a little bit of both. He's heavily invested in banks. Berkshire Hathaway carries a lot of weight in banks, in the banking sector. Maybe he's mad that the banking sector is doing so bad, or maybe it's just in his best interest to talk badly because his position is so strong in the banking sector. Needless to say, we're going to dive into some of this. One comparison right off the bat, and this is where we're going to start with it. We're going to start with Wells Fargo, go into Goldman Sachs, and then come back around and touch on Bitcoin and the reason why I think that he's not really hedging himself a lot at all. So let's dive in. Wells Fargo, a Buffett investment, has been fined 93 times for fraud and other abuses for a total of $14.8 billion in fines since just 2000. That's interesting and terrifying at the same time. Wells Fargo is always in constant trouble. It seems like 14 billion in just since 2000. So what is that, 19 years? So basically what Barry said was, and this tweet kind of went viral, even though there's not a lot of retweets, but it got a lot of attention. I'll take Bitcoin charlatans over that any day. Okay, so Wells Fargo has obviously had some problems. I talked about this in a previous video. In February 7th, they had a complete outage, worldwide global outage, that it took them about a day or a day and a half to come back up, meaning no debit cards worked, no deposits were posted, no online banking, no banking help in the branches, nothing. Your cards were getting declined. It was literally a hard shutoff. A lot of people thought maybe this is some sort of test for a global outage. There's some conspiracy theories going around for sure, but at the core, the facts are that for about a day, day and a half, Wells Fargo was completely down, which is outrageous. Like, that is so insane to think about. All these people that went and were just trying to live everyday life, go grab a coffee, go grab a sandwich, grab my lunch, because they're so trained to use their debit card, their whole life was rocked for that day. Now, some of it might have been overly snowflake-ish in terms of the response people and the outrage people had, but it does prove the point to also have a backup plan, doesn't it? They had this outage and all is good, right? They fixed it. Well, actually on March 7th, almost just about exactly a month later, they had problems again. And so we've got record high amount of fines in comparison to other banks. We also have the bank outage in the midst of what appears to be, as they quote, an apology tour. 2018, Tim Sloan, who's the CEO, did get a raise, 5% to 18.4 million. And to be fair, he's at the low end. Jamie Dimon gets 31 million. CEO of Bank of America gets 23 million. And I think all those are fairly obnoxious, especially considering all the trouble that they're constantly getting into and all the shady things that banks actually do, right? From changing around your numbers in your online banking to get you to default to trigger your overdraft fees and all the games that they play with monthly fees now, overages, not hitting your minimums. All these fees add up to a lot more than they've been fined. Let's be honest. 14 billion is nothing in comparison to what they make. They make billions every year. So what are we at now? In maybe the $1 trillion territory that they've made off of all this whole new generation of fees and ways that they can squeeze more money out of the general public. Let's be honest. This I just thought was interesting, and I thought I'd throw it in there to kind of prove the point that even in the midst of all these mistakes and all these things that they should be pumping money back into the company, pumping money back into their people and investing in their people, they're not. The CEO is making more. And again, like I said, he makes a lot less in comparison to others, but now you know. Quick little look at the stock price. I should have gone through this first. 50 bucks. I didn't care to go that far back, but I'm interested if you care to go back and look at the day of the outage, what happened to their stock price. I'm sure it absolutely took a shit that day, but they seem to have leveled back off to a degree and come back up quite a bit from these lows that we see even in the beginning of the month, because around the 7th of March, remember, it also went down. So pretty volatile for S&P 500 stock, right? That's everything on Wells Fargo. Now I want to come back to we're going to go through all of his comments. So let's keep those two together, actually, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a step back in time and go back to the 2009 bailout. We're in the midst of the bailout. I don't know if you guys remember this. Buffett was being paraded on TV. What did he say that it's, I remember from in a movie anyways. He said something about it being a bloodbath out there. Okay, so let's go back in time now to 2009. We're right knee deep in the heat, in the midst of the shit of the financial crisis. As it's happening, Buffett was being paraded around on TV as the expert, right? That we all believe him to be, the billionaire investor, asked for his advice and what do you think we should do, blah, blah, blah. Well, it turned out that he was actually brought in by the government to, I guess, assess the situation. And he does talk about this even on national television. You can go back and find this on YouTube. You can go back and find these clips. He was brought in to help. The thing you got to look at with that is like, okay, you bring in this billionaire guy and you're talking about the problem and you're talking about who's going to get allocation of funds. Well, he was already at that time invested in many of the companies, Goldman Sachs being the biggest, that were going to get the bailout. I just think it's convenient, right, that he's like the guy that they called in to help with this matter. And he's got a strong holding and strong position in a lot of this. And it just turned out that the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP, went to a lot of the investments that he already had, a lot of the banks he was already invested in. Also, too, from a standpoint of insider trading, like where does that cross the line? Does that cross the line? And then has he been kept in the loop going forward? Like, are banks constantly consulting with him? If so, is there like any sort of conflict of interest going on or insider trading information going on that's allowed him to be so successful? Because we do have to question at this point. I think it's healthy to question how a lot of these idols have gotten their money. I think that's a healthy questioning, actually. I don't think that's toxic. I don't think that's trolling. I don't think that's hate speech. I don't think that's anti-Semitic. I just think that's normal logic. Like, you have a guy who's touted around to be a billionaire already at this point, who now gets invited in behind closed doors to a lot of, if he didn't already know, the inner mechanisms of the beast, the belly of the beast, the matrix itself. And how have those relationships continued? Like, does he have a direct line to the president? Are they talking on a regular basis? Is he talking with the Fed on a regular basis? I don't know. Then that's obviously going to be affecting him and his position. So I guess if you want to play it one way, you should invest in Berkshire Hathaway because he's got the goods. On the other end of it, you know, if you want to be bitter about it and you don't want to invest in that, I guess maybe we should be pulling out the pitchforks and going after them? I don't know. Just 28 companies received more than 90% of the funds so far dispersed to financial firms by the $700 billion Troubled Asset Relief Fund. We all know that this was way more than $700 billion now. The numbers estimate from their own numbers of $1.2 trillion all the way up to $21 trillion. Watch my previous videos. I cover that in 3 other videos. Buffett's company, Berkshire Hathaway, hasn't received any of that federal aid directly, but Berkshire, based in blah, 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 owns stocks valued at more than $13 billion of the top recipients of the TARP funds, including Goldman Sachs, US Bancorp, American Express, Bank of America, and probably many others that they didn't mention. That is very eluding and fairly interesting, right? Interesting point. And even back then, he was still in Wells Fargo as well, which got $25 billion, which Wells Fargo just continually seems to screw up and continually seems to be getting rewarded for it. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of these funds and a lot of this funding does come from taxpayers' money. So you guys are all paying for this, and yet you don't get a say in it. I think that it needs to change as well. Anyways, let's just finish up on Goldman Sachs here. Goldman Sachs, I don't know if you remember this, but right after the bailout, they tried to put blame. There was actually only one guy who went to jail during that whole bailout. I don't know if you remember that. If not, go back and look, you'll see. And in 2010, the SEC files charges against Goldman Sachs for fraud in structuring their CDOs and I guess the conflict of interest between the CDOs and the subprime mortgages that they were running. Okay, so defrauding investors by misstating and omitting key facts about financial product tied to subprime mortgages as the U.S. housing market was beginning to falter. The SEC alleges that Goldman Sachs structured and marketed a synthetic CDO, or collateralized debt obligation, that hinged on the performance of subprime residential mortgage-backed securities. Goldman Sachs failed to disclose to investors vital information about the CDO, in particular the role that a major hedge fund played in the portfolio selection process and the fact that the hedge fund had taken a short position against the CDO. Yeah. Anyway, and then here's a piece talking about, hey, is Warren Buffett going to get dragged through the mud for this Goldman Sachs thing? And if we go back in time, he didn't. Bloomberg calculated on Monday that the loss of value in Berkshire investment in Goldman options is just over $1 billion. And this is something interesting as well. Now, I get that Berkshire Hathaway controls billions of dollars and they make billions of dollars. I get that. They are willing to lose a lot in some of these positions, and that is questionable. Okay, now let's backstep and go all the way back to crypto. Okay, so I did talk about 2011, he missed out on Apple. So here it is. In 2011, he did not invest in Apple. Instead, so he was way late to that party. Instead, they invested $10 billion into IBM, thinking it was a superior firm at the time. And they ended up exiting that IBM position with a substantial loss. And at that time, Apple stock had already quadrupled. I bring all this stuff up because I guess growing up, and the way that I idolized Warren Buffett is that he could do no wrong. And then obviously that was when I was a kid and a teenager. And then once I got in my 20s and now in my 30s, I'm just realizing that, yeah, the guy does make mistakes, just like we all do. But is he losing his edge? I guess that's the bigger question. And I think to a degree, yes, I think he is losing his edge. And I think that you should just look at parts of his strategy and apply those to your life and not idolize this guy like he's some sort of hero, because at the end of the day, he doesn't really care about you and me. Here's some of the comments that he's made. It's a delusional asset which attracts charlatans. He said that it was rat poison squared before. Him and Charlie Munger really get on it, say that it's dementia. People that are into it have dementia, and it's a delusional asset, right? Very interesting. I think that's a bit hypocritical because it's, once again, there's a few key arguments against Bitcoin. I don't know if you've caught on to this. There's the energy debate. There's the true value of zero, not a store of value, not a store of wealth, it has no purchasing power, has nothing behind it. Those are kind of like the common debates that you see behind it by most of the no coiners or people that don't like cryptocurrency, like Buffett, like Nouriel Roubini, the economist. Okay, so now let's jump over to this other one. where he was sitting down with Jamie Dimon. Yeah, what's he say here? At some point during an interview recorded yesterday, a reporter questions her guests, which of you hates Bitcoin more? Then Warren Buffett replied, I set a high standard. I don't know whether Jamie can top me. Buffett is certainly more creative than Dimon when it comes to bad-mouthing Bitcoin. His famous outbursts against digital currency that state that is probably rat poison squared. Right, there it is. Okay. You said you were wrong about Google and Amazon. Maybe you're wrong about Bitcoin. Everything that he's invested in is inside the matrix. What if the matrix goes down? And what I call the matrix, for lack of better words, is the federal system, the banking system. Yes, I understand the SPIC, the FDIC insurance. Yes, I understand all the regulations and things that should occur. But as we saw, like in 2009, when there is a big enough global meltdown, some of those rules change and some of those rules bend. So how is this a smart hedging position, which is like one of his basic standards, if everything is in the matrix? So does that mean he has Bitcoin, but he's lying about it? Or that he really just doesn't like Bitcoin and doesn't understand it? Just like he was wrong about Google, wrong about Amazon, late to Apple, is he once again late again into something that he doesn't understand? And I think it's partially yes. I think he completely does not understand proof of work concepts, a decentralized asset like this. I don't think he understands. But to everyone looking to create a truly diversified portfolio, doesn't it make sense to have something that isn't owned by the matrix and is outside of the matrix? What I mean by that is decentralized, decoupled from that whole federal system. I think it is. Okay, now, of course, we could talk and split hairs about real estate and physical stuff like that outside of, which is fairly outside of the money markets as well. And I think those are smart. Gold and silver, real estate. Also, I think Bitcoin is smart. I think it's a smart hedge against other positions you might be taking. So I don't think that that part makes sense. And I also don't like how closed-minded he is. It's just like the following. The second thing that I'm noticing is that he doesn't seem to really want to change his beliefs on things. Now, I have heard him admit that he was okay with being wrong and okay with missing out on some of these investments. He's missed Google, missed Amazon, missed Apple when he could have. Is he missing Bitcoin again? I think it's more interesting that he doesn't really seem to care to change or to invite in a new opinion. He would rather just stick to what he knows. Now, at what point does what he knows and what is working for him stop working? And this needs to be asked. We have all these algorithmic bots, okay, and robo stuff coming out as in the financial world, and it's only going to get greater. At what point does his old school way of doing it, does his no computers, drinking 5 Cokes a day, eating McDonald's every morning, at what point does that strategy start to lose to not only automation and AI, but also somebody being more open to different things changing? Now, the interesting thing about the brain, to talk about that for a second, is around 44, 45 for men, the brain really is locked and loaded in its beliefs and its worldviews, meaning that people after that age, it's much harder for them to change. Once you hit 65, again, it's much harder for you to change your worldviews and your perspectives because you think you know it all. Not from an arrogant standpoint, but you know enough of the world and you have your models set in stone. You're not really looking to change those. And Warren Buffett is currently 88, so I assume that there is some of that going on as well. But the law of diminishing returns, like when does that start to kick in for this whole approach? And so for you new up-and-coming investors that are looking to Warren Buffett and his strategy, you do have to question that as well. It all goes back to what I said in the beginning, is obviously the guy's got faults. I don't think he should be looked at as a hero. I don't think you should idolize anybody. I don't think you should idolize anyone at all, actually, except yourself. And so I think it boils back down to take the stuff that you like about his strategy and about what he's doing and apply it. Or if you want to be super lazy, maybe just invest in Berkshire Hathaway, and it's a fairly safe bet, it would appear, since all these things seem to be swaying perfectly in his favor through all these economic disasters. I mean, think about it. He went through one of the biggest economic disasters since the Great Depression without a single scrape, without a scratch. That's pretty impressive. So either he's got some important friends in high places or he really is that good. I don't know. You be the judge. I'd love to hear your feedback on this video. Place a comment below. And if you want to support us financially, there's going to be some links underneath the videos. Just $1 a month you could pledge, which would go a long way for us in the research and content that we do and allow us to keep going, right? And then there's going to be some other stuff too. There's some affiliate links underneath the video that you could support us with as well. If you're brand new to the video and you got this shared with you, you saw it on a playlist, great, welcome. Click the subscribe button, hit the bell notification button, and be on the lookout. More videos dropping soon, my friends. Bye.